The Dracorian Empire was old. It was older than most stars. It stretched across 17 star systems, and at its center floated a station so big that people called it a moon. This was the Palace of Eternal Scales. The dragons who ruled the galaxy had built it from the bones of a dead world. Every wall was carved with the names of ancient kings. Every floor was polished until it shone like water. Millions of servants worked here. Thousands of nobles lived here. And in one forgotten corner, hidden behind sealed doors and empty hallways, there was a prince that no one wanted to remember. Marcus Chun knew nothing about this prince. When he took the job, he was 53 years old. He had gray hair and tired eyes and hands that knew hard work. He came from a human colony called New Shandong, a green world with rice fields and bamboo forests and 3 small moons. His wife had died 2 years ago. His daughter had her own family now. His grandchildren lived too far away to visit. So Marcus had taken a job cleaning floors on a Dragon space station. Because it paid well and he needed something to fill his days. The employment office had assigned him to the sealed wing. Nobody goes there, the Dracorian administrator had told him. The dragon was small by their standards, only 20 meters long, with scales the color of copper. You will clean the floors. You will maintain the systems. You will not speak to anyone you find there. Do you understand? Marcus had nodded. He understood that he was being sent somewhere unimportant. That was fine with him. He liked quiet. The sealed wing was more than quiet. It was dead. The hallways stretched on forever, lit by lights that flickered, because no one bothered to fix them. Dust covered everything. The air tasted stale and old. Marcus walked through room after room and found nothing but emptiness. Old furniture covered in sheets. Broken screens on the walls. A garden where all the plants had turned to brown sticks long ago. On his first day, he cleaned for 8 hours and saw no one. On his second day, the same. On his third day, he found the prince. Marcus had walked into the observation deck. A big room with windows that looked out at the stars. He had his mop and his bucket, and he was thinking about what he would eat for dinner. Then he stopped. Something was in the corner. Something huge thought at first. Marcus thought it was a statue. The Dracorians love statues of themselves. But then the shape moved. It shifted. And Marcus saw that it was alive. The dragon was young, maybe 100 years old, which was like a teenager for their kind. His body was long and covered in scales that should have been bright but looked dull and gray instead. His wings were pressed tight against his sides, like he was trying to make himself smaller. His head was tucked down, hidden under his front claws. And where his eyes should have been, there were only smooth plates of platinum metal, bolted to his skull. He was crying. Not loudly, not with sound, but his whole body shook with silent sobs. Marcus stood there for a long moment. He knew he should leave. The administrator had told him not to speak to anyone. This was clearly someone important, someone royal, someone far above a human janitor. The smart thing would be to walk away and pretend he had seen nothing. But Marcus had never been very smart. Rough day? He asked. The dragon's head snapped up. The metal plates over his eyes caught the starlight. His whole body went stiff, like an animal that had hurt a predator. Who is there? The voice was deep but young, scared. Just the janitor, Marcus said. He leaned on his mop. Name's Marcus. They sent me to clean this place up. Silence. The dragon did not move, did not speak, just stayed frozen, as if he was waiting for something terrible to happen. Marcus shrugged. Well, I've got floors to mop. Don't mind me. He started working. The mop made soft sounds against the floor. The bucket wheels squeaked a little. Outside the windows, stars burned in the darkness. And slowly, so slowly, the dragon began to relax. His wings loosened. His head lowered. He did not stop watching Marcus, even though he could not see. That was how it began. Marcus came back the next day. And the next. The dragon never spoke to him, never moved from his corner. But Marcus talked anyway. He talked the way he used to talk to his wife when she was sick, filling the silence with words because silence was too heavy to bear. He talked about his work, about how the dust in this place was like nothing he had ever seen, about how the automated systems kept breaking down, about how he had finally convinced the food machine to make proper kanji, even though it took him 3 days to figure out the controls. The dragon listened. Marcus could tell because he stopped shaking. He stopped crying. He just lay there, head turned toward the sound of a human voice. 1 week passed. Then, too, Marcus learned that the dragon's name was Velthrix. He learned that Velthrix was a prince, the third son of Emperor Corvan the Undying. He learned that Velthrix had been born blind, and that among the Dracorians, blindness was the worst thing that could happen to a person. The Dracorians had 11 different kinds of eyes. They could see colors that humans could not imagine. They could read the light that came off a person's body and know what they were feeling. Their whole culture was built on seeing. Their art, their politics, their religion, everything. A blind Dracorian was not just disabled. A blind Dracorian was broken, wrong. They had a word for it, void-touched. It meant cursed by the darkness between stars. It meant monster. Prince Velthrix had been hidden in the sealed wing since he was 10 years old. His father had locked him away. His brothers and sisters pretended he did not exist. The court had forgotten him. For 90 years, he had lived alone in these empty halls, with only automated machines for company. Until Marcus Chen walked in with his mop and asked if he was having a rough day. "You should not be here," Velthrix said one evening. It was the first time he had spoken in weeks. "If they find out you talk to me, they will punish you." Marcus kept mopping. "Probably? Then why do you stay?" The old janitor looked at the young prince. He saw the dull scales and the metal plates, and the body that had forgotten how to stand straight. He saw loneliness so deep it had become a kind of death. Because, Marcus said simply, everyone deserves someone to talk to. The prince had no answer for that. But that night, for the first time in years, he did not cry himself to sleep. The guards came for Marcus on a morning like any other. He was in his small room, getting ready for work. The door exploded inward. 4 Dracorian soldiers rushed in, their scales bright with battle colors, their claws sharp enough to cut through metal. They grabbed Marcus before he could speak. They dragged him out into the hallway. They did not tell him why Marcus was not a young man. His body was old and tired and not made for rough handling, but he did not fight. He did not scream. He had lived long enough to know that some storms cannot be stopped. You just had to survive them. The soldiers took him through parts of the palace he had never seen. Grand hallways filled with light, gardens where strange plants grew under artificial suns, fountains that sprayed water in impossible shapes. The Dracorian Empire was powerful beyond anything humans had ever built. And here, at its heart, that power was on full display. Finally, they reached the throne room. Marcus had heard stories about this place. Every human in the palace had. The throne room was the center of the empire. Decisions made here changed the fates of billions. Wars began here. Wars ended here. Emperors lived and died here. It was the biggest room Marcus had ever seen. The ceiling was so high that clouds formed near the top. The walls were covered in gold and jewels and the preserved scales of dead emperors. Thousands of Dracorians filled the space. Nobles in their finest colors, warriors in their battle armor, scholars in their gray robes. They all turned to stare as the guards dragged Marcus in. At the far end of the room, on a throne made of crystal that glowed with inner light, sat Emperor Corvan the Undying. He was old, ancient, His scales had faded to gray, and his body was covered in scars from wars fought thousands of years ago. But his eyes burned with cold fire. When he looked at Marcus, the old janitor felt like an insect being examined by a god. "This is the human?" The Emperor's voice was thunder. It rolled through the room and made the floor shake. "This is the creature that dares to speak to my son?" Marcus said nothing. There was nothing to say. "Explain yourself, animal." The Emperor leaned forward. "What have you done to Prince Valthrix? What poison have you put in his mind? What tricks have you used to corrupt him?" "I haven't corrupted anyone," Marcus said. His voice was calm, steady. "I just talked to him." Laughter filled the throne room. Thousands of Dracorians, all laughing at the idea that a human could matter. That words could matter. That kindness to a forgotten prince could be anything other than a joke. "You talked to him," the Emperor repeated. His voice dripped with contempt. "You, a janitor, a servant, a member of a species so primitive that you still believe in invisible gods and cry when your pets die. You talked to a prince of the Dracorian Empire." "Yes, and you told him stories." "Yes, and you made him believe that he was worth something." Marcus lifted his chin. He was surrounded by creatures that could tear him apart with a single claw, but he was not afraid. He had lived a good life. He had loved his wife and raised his daughter and held his grandchildren. And he had done one more thing that mattered. He had been kind to a lonely boy. "He is worth something," Marcus said. "He always was. You were just too blind to see it." Silence fell over the throne room. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. His claws dug into the arms of his throne, leaving deep grooves in the crystal. "Kill him," the Emperor said. The guards raised their weapons, and then the doors exploded. Not opened. Exploded. Torn off their hinges and thrown across the room like toys. The guards spun around. The nobles screamed. The Emperor rose from his throne, his old body suddenly tense with power. Prince Valthrix stood in the doorway. He had torn through walls to get here. The path behind him was a trail of destruction. Broken metal, shattered stone, security systems that had been ripped apart like paper. His scales blazed with color. His wings spread wide, filling the doorway. His body seemed to glow with energy that made the air itself tremble. "You will not touch him," Valthrix said. The Emperor stared at his son. For a moment, his cold face showed something like shock. "How did you escape?" "The sealed wing was built to contain. It was built to contain a broken thing," Valthrix interrupted. "I am not broken. I never was." Guards rushed toward the prince. Elite soldiers, the best in the Empire, trained to fight and kill without mercy. Valthrix did not move, did not flinch. He simply turned his blind face toward them, and they stopped. Every guard froze in place. Their weapons fell from their claws. Their eyes went wide with something that looked like terror. "What are you doing to them?" the Emperor demanded. "I am showing them," Valthrix said. "I am showing them what I see." He walked forward. Each step was slow and deliberate. The nobles parted before him like water before a ship. Even the Emperor seemed to shrink back on his throne. "All my life, you told me I was void-touched," Valthrix said. "Cursed, broken because I could not see light. But I was never blind. I simply see differently than you." He stopped in the center of the throne room. His wings folded against his back. His head turned toward his father. "I see probability. I see the quantum patterns that make up reality itself. I see the past and the future and every possibility in between. I see things that your 11-spectrum eyes could never imagine." The Emperor's face twisted. "That is impossible, is it?" Valthrix's voice was calm. "Then how did I know that you would summon Marcus today? How did I know exactly where your guards would be? How did I know the weakness in every wall between my prison and this room?" He turned toward Marcus. The old janitor was still kneeling on the floor, guards on either side of him, but the guards were not moving. They could not move. Whatever the prince was doing to them, they were frozen like statues. "This human," Velfrix said, "is mine. He talked to me when no one else would. He told me stories when I had nothing but silence. He treated me like a person when everyone else treated me like a monster." He looked back at his father. "You locked me away because you were afraid of what I might become. You were right to be afraid. But your fear created the very thing you wanted to prevent. If you had shown me kindness, I might have been loyal. Instead, you sent me a human. And he showed me what kindness looks like." The Emperor said nothing. His claws gripped the throne. His whole body trembled with rage or fear or both. "I am leaving," Velfrix said. "I am taking Marcus with me. And if you try to stop me, I will show this entire room what it means to stare into the void." No one moved. Velfrix walked to Marcus and lowered his great head. "Can you stand?" "I think so." Marcus's legs shook, but he forced himself up. "Then climb on my back. We are leaving this place." Marcus looked at the prince, at the throne room full of frozen nobles, at the Emperor sitting powerless on his crystal seat. Then he smiled. "You know," he said, "I always wanted to ride a dragon." They flew out through the broken doors. Behind them, the Empire trembled. Nothing would ever be the same. Marcus Chun had been a father before he was a janitor. He had been a grandfather, too. And one thing he knew about children, whether they were human or dragon or anything else, was that they needed stories. It started small. Marcus was cleaning the old garden one afternoon, pulling dead plants from their pots, when Velfrix asked him a question. "What is kanji?" Marcus stopped. He turned to look at the prince, who was lying near the doorway. Velfrix often followed him now, moving through the halls like a ghost, always staying close enough to hear Marcus work. "You heard me talking about that?" "I hear everything you say." The prince's voice was quiet, almost shy. "There is nothing else to hear." So Marcus told him. He explained that kanji was rice porridge, soft and warm, the kind of food his mother had made when he was sick as a boy. He described how you cooked it slowly, stirring until the rice broke down into something smooth. He talked about the toppings, green onions and fried shallots and soft-boiled eggs with runny centers. When he finished, Velfrix was silent for a long time. "I do not know what rice is," the prince said. "I do not know what eggs are. I have never tasted anything except nutrition paste." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. 90 years. This boy had lived 90 years eating nothing but paste from a machine. "Well," Marcus said, "I'll have to fix that." He could not bring real food into the sealed wing. The security systems would not allow it. But he could do something else. He could describe it. And so that night, after his work was done, Marcus sat down on the floor near the prince and began to talk. He told Velfrix about food. Not just kanji, but all of it. The crunch of fresh vegetables. The sweetness of fruit picked ripe from the tree. The way spices could make your tongue burn and your eyes water and your whole body feel alive. He described meals he had eaten on New Shandong, dumplings his wife had made by hand, noodles from the shop on the corner, tea that smelled like flowers and tasted like home. Velfrix listened without moving. Without breathing, it seemed. His whole body was turned toward Marcus like a plant turning toward the sun. When Marcus finally stopped, the prince spoke one word. More. So Marcus told him more. The next night, he talked about his homeworld. He described the rice paddies that grew in low gravity, the way the water hung in the air like floating mirrors. He talked about the bamboo forests where his daughter had gotten married, green and tall and full of singing birds. He described the 3 moons rising over the mountains, painting everything in silver and gold. "You speak as if you loved it," Velfrix said. "I did. I do. Dracorians do not love places. We love power. We love legacy. We love bloodlines. Marcus shrugged. Humans are different. We fall in love with everything. Places, people, ideas, even stories about things that never happened. Stories about things that never happened? The prince tilted his head. Why would anyone care about something that is not real? Because sometimes, Marcus said, the things that are not real are the most real things of all. Velthrix did not understand. Marcus could see it in the way his body shifted, confused. So the old janitor did what he had done with his grandchildren for years. He began to tell a story. He told the prince about a monkey. A very special monkey, born from a stone on a mountain in a country called China. This monkey was clever and strong and full of mischief. He learned to fly on clouds. He stole a magic staff from the dragon king of the sea. He ate the peaches of immortality and got himself in terrible trouble. His name was Sin Wukong, Marcus said, the Monkey King, and the gods were so angry with him that they trapped him under a mountain for 500 years. That is terrible, Velthrix whispered. Wait, there's more. Marcus told him about the monk who freed the Monkey King, about the journey they took together, walking west across the world to find sacred writings, about the demons they fought and the friends they made and the lessons they learned along the way. He told the story the way his grandmother had told it to him, with voices for each character and pauses at the exciting parts. When he finished, hours had passed. His throat was dry. His back ached from sitting on the hard floor. But Velthrix was smiling. It was the first time Marcus had seen him smile. The expression looked strange on a dragon's face, but it was real. It was beautiful. Tell me another, the prince said. So Marcus did. Night after night he told stories. He told stories from Earth. Odysseus trying to get home. Romeo and Juliet falling in love. A little prince living alone on an asteroid with only a rose for company. He told stories from other human worlds. The legends of New Shandong, the myths of Mars Colony. The tall tales that spacers told in bars after too much to drink. And slowly, something began to change. Velthrix started asking questions. Not just about the stories, but about humans. Why did they do the things they did? Why did they fight wars over ideas? Why did they make music and paintings and poetry? Why did they keep pets, forming bonds with animals that would die so soon? You live such short lives, the prince said one night. My father is 9,000 years old. You might live 100 years. 200 with medicine. How do you bear it? Marcus thought about this. He thought about his wife, who had lived only 68 years. He thought about his parents, who were long dead. He thought about his grandchildren, who would grow old while he was still alive, who would die while he still remembered their baby faces. Maybe that's why we love so hard, he said finally. We don't have time to be careful about it. The prince was quiet for a long time. The court scholars say humans are primitive, Velthrix said. They say you are barely intelligent, useful only as servants and workers. Maybe they're right. No. The prince's voice was firm. They are wrong. The scholars have never once come to see me. They have never told me a story. They have never talked to me as if I mattered. Only you have done that. Only you. Marcus reached out and put his hand on the prince's massive claw. The scales were cold under his palm, but he could feel a heartbeat beneath them, strong and steady. That's what humans do, Marcus said. We talk to people, even the ones everyone else has forgotten. That night, after Marcus left, Prince Velthrix lay awake for a long time. He was thinking about monkeys and monks and little princes on asteroids. He was thinking about a human who had walked into his prison and treated him like a person. For the first time in 90 years, he did not feel alone. Months passed in the sealed wing. The seasons meant nothing on a space station, but Marcus kept track of time the way humans always did. He counted days. He marked calendars. He remembered birthdays and holidays, even when there was no one to celebrate them with. The rest of the palace forgot about him. That was fine. Marcus had never wanted attention. He wanted peace and quiet and enough money to send home to his family. He got all of that in the sealed wing, but something else was happening. Something he had not expected. Prince Valfrix was changing Dot. It started with small things. The prince began to move more. Instead of lying in one corner all day, he would walk through the halls, following the sound of Marcus working. His wings, which had been pressed tight against his body for years, started to open sometimes. They were huge wings, beautiful wings, covered in scales that caught the light like dark jewels. "Your scales are getting brighter," Marcus said one day. Valfrix stopped. "What do you mean?" "When I first came here, they were gray, dull. Now they're starting to shine. Like they're supposed to." The prince was quiet. Then he said something that made Marcus's heart hurt. "No one has ever told me what color I am." So Marcus told him. He described the scales, deep purple at the edges, shading to blue, and then to black at the center. He described the patterns, swirls and curves that looked like galaxies spinning in space. He described the way the light played across them, making them shimmer like oil on water. Dot. When he finished, Valfrix was trembling. "I always thought I was ugly," the prince whispered. "They told me I was. The doctors, the servants. When I was young, before they sealed me away, they said I was wrong, broken, void-touched. They were fools," Marcus said. After that, something shifted between them. The prince began to ask Marcus to describe everything. The shape of the rooms, the color of the stars outside the windows, the way Marcus's own face looked, the wrinkles, the gray hair, the tired smile. "You look kind," Valfrix said one day. "I look old," Marcus corrected. "Is there a difference?" Marcus laughed. It was the first time he had laughed in months. The sound echoed through the empty halls, bright and strange. The prince started making things. It began with small sculptures. Valfrix would find broken pieces of equipment, old metal and wire and glass, and he would shape them with his claws. He worked by touch alone, feeling the forms grow under his hands. When he finished, he would bring them to Marcus. "What does it look like?" He would ask. And Marcus would describe it. He would turn the sculpture in his hands and find the words. This one looked like a bird taking flight. That one looked like a wave crashing on a shore. Another looked like two hands reaching for each other across empty space. "That one's my favorite," Marcus said, holding up the reaching hands. "Why?" "Because it's hopeful. It says that even when we're far apart, we're still trying to connect." Valfrix took the sculpture back. He held it carefully, running his claws over its surface. "I made it for you," he said. "I was thinking about you when I shaped it." Marcus did not know what to say. He was just a janitor. He cleaned floors and told stories. He was nobody important. But this prince, this lonely boy trapped in an empty prison, had made something beautiful and given it to him as a gift. "Thank you," Marcus said. His voice came out rough. "I'll keep it forever." The relationship between them deepened. Marcus found himself looking forward to his shifts in a way he had not looked forward to anything since his wife died. The prince would be waiting for him at the door, eager to hear what story Marcus would tell that night. They would talk for hours about anything and everything, philosophy and science and history, and the strange differences between humans and dragons. Why do humans keep pets? Valfrix asked one night. "The court scholars say it is a sign of weakness, that you cannot form proper bonds with your own kind, so you bond with animals instead." "That's one way to look at it," Marcus said. "Here's another. Maybe we just have so much love that we have to share it." even with creatures who can't talk back, even with creatures who will break our hearts by dying too soon. That sounds painful. It is. It is. But it's worth it. Velthrix thought about this. I think, he said slowly, that humans are braver than dragons. How so? You know you will lose everything. Your homes, your families, your own lives. Everything you love will end. But you love anyway. You hope anyway. That takes courage. Marcus smiled. Or maybe we're just too stubborn to give up. 1 year passed. Then 2. The prince grew stronger. He stood taller. He moved through the sealed wing like he owned it, because he did. He was still blind, still locked away, still forgotten by the world. But he was no longer broken. One night, Velthrix said something that changed everything. You are my favorite voice, the prince told him. Marcus paused in his work. I'm the only voice you hear. No, the machines speak to me. The medical systems. The security alerts. But they are not voices. They are noise. Empty sounds that mean nothing. The prince's head turned toward Marcus. You are the only one who speaks to me. Really speaks to me. As if I am a person. As if I matter. You do matter, Marcus said. I know that now. You taught me. They sat together in silence for a long time. Outside the windows, stars burned in the darkness. Somewhere far away, the rest of the palace went about its business, full of nobles and servants and grand events. None of them knew about the old human and the blind prince. None of them cared dot, but in the sealed wing, something precious was growing. A friendship. A bond. 2 people from different worlds, different species, different lives, finding something real in each other. Marcus did not know it yet. But this bond was about to be tested, because the Emperor was watching, and he did not like what he saw. 10 years changed everything. Emperor Corvan the Undying was no longer emperor. He had not died. He had simply been removed, stripped of his power by a council of nobles who had seen what his void-touch son could do. The old dragon lived now in a small palace on a distant moon, surrounded by servants, but utterly alone. Some said it was justice. Some said it was cruel. Marcus thought it was just the universe balancing itself out. Prince Velthrix had become Emperor Velthrix the Seer. It had not been easy. There had been challenges and plots and 3 separate assassination attempts. But Velthrix could see probability itself. He knew what his enemies would do before they did it. He knew which allies would betray him and which would stay true. One by one, his opponents had fallen, and the blind prince had risen to the highest seat in the empire. Now he ruled 17 star systems. Billions of Dracorians obeyed his commands. His word was law across more space than any human can imagine. And Marcus Chun still told him stories. The old janitor sat on a balcony in the imperial suite, the finest rooms in the Palace of Eternal Scales. Below him, gardens stretched out in every direction. Real gardens with real plants, tended by real gardeners. Ships flew past in the distance, carrying goods and people and news from 1,000 worlds. The empire hummed with life. Marcus was 93 years old now. His body was failing. The best doctors in 17 systems had done what they could, but there were limits to medicine. His heart was weak. His lungs struggled with every breath. He spent most of his days in a special chair that helped him breathe, looking out at stars he had never expected to see. You should be resting, Velthrix said. The Emperor had coiled himself around the balcony like a dragon from the old stories. His scales gleamed purple and blue and black, bright with health and power. The platinum masks that had once covered his eyes were gone. He had removed them years ago. His eye sockets were empty, but somehow they still seemed to see. I'll rest when I'm dead, Marcus said. Which should be soon. Don't say that. You can see probability, boy. You know I'm right. Silence stretched between them. Not an uncomfortable silence. The kind of silence that old friends share when they know each other well enough that words are not always needed. "I have started a project," Velthrix said finally. "The finest engineers in the Empire. They are recording your voice. Every story you have told me. Every conversation we have had. They are preserving it all." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That's a bit strange." "It is Dracorian. We preserve what matters. And my voice matters?" Velthrix turned his blind face toward the old human. "Your voice is the only thing that has ever mattered." They sat together as the stars wheeled overhead. Marcus thought about his life. About New Shandong and his wife and his daughter and his grandchildren. About a job cleaning floors in a forgotten wing. About a crying prince in a dark corner. "Do you remember the first thing I ever said to you?" Marcus asked. "Yes. You asked if I was having a rough day. And you didn't answer." "I didn't know how." No one had ever asked me a question before. Not really. The doctors asked about my health. The security systems asked for identification. But no one had ever asked how I was feeling. Marcus smiled. "You were a mess." "I was." "And you cleaned me up. Not with mops and buckets. With words. With stories. With kindness." The old man reached out, and the Emperor lowered his great head so that Marcus could rest his hand against the scales. They were warm now, pulsing with life. "You never needed my stories," Marcus said quietly. "You just needed someone to believe you were worth talking to. Perhaps. But you were the one who believed. In all the universe, across all the billions of voices I have heard since, yours is still my favorite. Why?" Velthrix was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "Because you walked into a forgotten hallway and talked to a monster. Because you saw something broken and treated it as whole. Because you were small and brief and fragile, and you gave your time to me anyway. Because you asked nothing in return." Marcus's eyes were wet. He wiped them with the back of his hand. "That's just what humans do," he said. "We talk to people. Even the ones nobody else wants. Yes, and that is why humanity is precious. Not because of your technology or your ships or your colonies. Because of your hearts. Because you love even when it hurts. Because you hope even when it is foolish. Because you treat strangers like friends and enemies like people, and monsters like princes." The sun was setting behind the palace, painting the sky in colors that Marcus could not name. He was tired. So tired. But he did not want to sleep yet. "Tell me a story," Velthrix said. Marcus laughed. "I've told you every story I know." "Then tell me one again." "Tell me about the Monkey King." So Marcus told him. One more time, he told the story of Sun Wukong, the stone monkey who became a king, the trickster who fought the gods, the prisoner who was freed by kindness. His voice was weak now, barely more than a whisper. But the Emperor listened as if it were the most beautiful sound in the universe. When the story ended, Marcus was asleep. He died 3 months later, peacefully in his bed, with the Emperor coiled around him like a shield. The last thing he heard was Velthrix's voice, telling him a story. The prince had learned some of his own over the years. He had learned them for this moment. Emperor Velthrix declared a day of mourning across all 17 star systems. Ships stopped flying. Markets closed. Billions of Dracorians paused in their work to honor a human janitor that most of them had never heard of. The nobles did not understand. The scholars did not understand. Even the humans did not fully understand, but Velthrix understood. And he made sure the universe would remember. He built a monument on New Shandong, in the bamboo forest where Marcus's daughter had been married. It was a simple thing. 2 hands reaching for each other across empty space. The same sculptor Marcus had loved all those years ago, and he established a holiday. Chun's Day, it was called. On that day, across all 17 systems, people were encouraged to talk to those who had no one, to tell stories to those who had never heard them, to be kind to the forgotten. This is what humans taught us, Velfric said in his announcement. Not war or trade or technology. Kindness. The simple act of treating another being as worthy of time and attention. This is their gift to the universe. This is why we honor them. Centuries passed. Empires rose and fell. Wars were fought and won and lost. But Chun's Day remained, and in the archives of the Imperial Palace, Marcus Chun's voice still played. An old man from a forgotten colony, telling stories to a blind prince who would become the greatest emperor the Dracorians had ever known. Because, in the end, that was humanity's greatest power, not strength, not speed, not technology, just a stubborn, irrational, beautiful belief that everyone deserves to be heard.